This is part one of a series of audio sermons that I'll be putting together over the next couple of months. This one is titled What the Jews Have Done. I'll be bringing up more topics later. But for now, this is about as good a place to start as any. In this segment, we'll be covering Bolshevism. And for those of you who don't know, Bolshevism is also Russian communism, a Jewish form of Russian communism, in which they force labor on everyone through their slave labor. And you don't have a choice when it comes to slave labor. When I mean slave labor, I literally mean slave labor. The reference of where I got this information is a book called Slave Labor in Soviet Russia by Dr. Herman Gief, published 1937 by Defender Publishers. You really have to read that book for yourself. I have the link posted down below. And when you do, you will see how that the slave labor in Soviet Russia was directly owned and operated by the Jews. They were the ones in charge of that. Everyone who was overseeing the project of building the White Sea Canal for the Jewish president of Russia at that time, Joseph Stalin, you will clearly see that everyone who was under him in charge of this was Jewish, and they proudly proclaimed that. They're very, very clear on that point. I've heard many people here in the United States talk about how that they think that all of the criminals we have in prison here, whether they're convicted of murder or rape or trafficking drugs or whatever crime they had committed here in this country, even tax evasion, people believe that they shouldn't just be sitting in a cell, just watching free cable, just relaxing, eating 3 meals a day and just taking it easy, and you're smoking their cigarettes and such. And they say, they should be out there working. We should put them to work. We should make them do something. Build those highways for us, or do something of some kind of construction nature to get those tax dollars working for us, because we're having to pay for all of that. We got to pay for all of their living expenses for them to sit there. Right? And then let's think about that for a minute, because are you sure that you really want to go down that road? Because Soviet Russia, they did something similar to that. Of course, they didn't ask the people; they just went ahead and did it, and it's quite a different story. They had laws put in place also that assisted them in having slave labor in Russia. Some stuff you just need to understand before we really go into it. Let's see here. This is from chapter 2 in the book. It says, a multitude of decrees and enactments provide the legal ground for apprehension of the farmers and their exile, which is what they used. In this connection, the famous decree of protection of socialistic property, August 7th, 1932, may be quoted. Section 2 of this decree reads, all chalates of the... This is some of these words I do not know how to pronounce, so they're translated. Actually, on second thought, I'm not going to try to read that to you, because you really just have to see it, and I'm just going to confuse you. Basically, everything you own, all these farmers owned, the crops in the field, joint reserves of grain, cattle, all their stock in the warehouse, everything they had was seen as property of the state. It was no longer personal property. So all the personal property just disappeared with these enactments that they made in 1932, which has paved the way for all this to happen. They also increased the the penalty for stealing any state property to a not less than 10 years in prison, or the shooting and confiscation of all of your private property. So if you steal someone else's property, since it's really owned by the state, even though they say it was still your private property, then they can just shoot you and take everything you own. And the document further states that this decree carries the responsibility for the shooting of countless innocent farmers and the steady flow of material to the concentration camps that were run by the Jews, of course. Up to the present time, the transports rolled endlessly with the appreciated workers condemned to exile and forced labor. Okay, so they just went into the farms of local towns and areas, different places, cities, and they just took everyone. The Russian government just took everyone that they felt like and said, okay, you're coming with us. You don't have a choice about this. And if that wasn't enough, they took everything that they owned, all of their livestock, all of their crops, all their wealth. They just grabbed it all, ripped it away from them. Men, women, and children tore the families apart and hauled them off and put them on a train and sent them off to these labor camps because they needed to dig a canal. And when they went into the houses to gather up their victims, they just simply walked in there and said, not only are you coming with us, but you're going to sign these documents that we have here that are now this is your time to confess. You're going to confess to these crimes that we made up, these false charges, and you're going to sign this, and you're going to confess to crimes you did not commit. And if you don't, we're going to torture and kill you. That is your choice. You have no other choice in this. This is how that Soviet Russia did it when they gathered up everyone they needed, and they needed millions of innocent Russians to build and to work in various camps. They had several camps all spread across Russia, which is shown in this article. It is just absolutely disgusting what the Jews have done, and if we allow them to do the same thing in the United States by people being unaware of what they're doing, then this is going to happen here. And that's in my personal opinion, quite easily to transition from where we are now and what we think is a free society into where Russia was in the 1930s. I ask you to please just use your head and think for yourself. Read this book, and also watch the videos down below to get a further explanation of what's really been going on. Once you were taken away to these forced labor camps, where the slave labor was occurring in Soviet Russia, to the Russian gulags, oftentimes either you died on the way, which was, those in my opinion were the lucky ones, or when you got there you lived in the most brutal conditions. It's really, really bad. I'm going to go in detail with it, explain all this to you, but I may have to do it in several videos on this. I need to watch the time as well as the file size of all of what I'm doing with the audio. This also goes further as well. Not only Russia, but China and North Korea have similar programs, and their methods of torture and treatment of prisoners is about equal. It's all equally evil. It's very, very bad, very low. Some of the only real differences, in my opinion, are the climate. Russia is very cold, And in China and North Korea, it can be very hot and sweltering, and different rain seasons versus snow and blizzards. But either way, the conditions were absolutely miserable. And these people, again, they committed no real crimes. It's like the U.S. government walking in your house, the police knock on the door, and just say, "Hey, you're guilty. You're now charged with treason, and we're going to haul you away. And your family doesn't know what happened to you. They come home from work, and you're gone. You disappeared. Your stuff's here, and there's no report filed or anything. And you're gone for the next 10 years. You finally escape after being tortured, and you have quite a story to tell." And that's what happened in Russia. People escaped, and that's how we got this information released. We just didn't know until it was too late. I would like to further add that Satanist Adolf Hitler and the Third Reich did everything in their power to stop the Jews and their Bolshevism, or their communism, from infecting the rest of Europe. So, all right, on to the next video.